have fun. Hello and welcome on into Motor Day UK. Today we've got something a little bit different for you, as I'm unable to spanner due to an injury I picked up when working on the Shizuki, officially now a disease pit as far as I'm concerned. We thought it would be a good time to talk about something that's been bouncing around in my head for quite a while, and that's why every biker should own a 125. Now, before we get into the nitty gritty of the subject and my thoughts on it, there's a couple of things I wanted to go over. First, the footage you're watching at the moment is of the first ride me and my dad went out on once the world began to open again and lockdown restrictions were lifted in Scotland. So we went out to go get an ice cream, which seemed like a valid enough reason for us to go, and my mum came along for the ride too, as she just got a new helmet and wanted to show it off. The second point is about another YouTuber that I've actually followed for quite some time now, because they had some interesting builds. Now I'm aware most people who watch this channel will probably be into bikes and a little bit of DIY on them too. And seeing the video I saw, which thankfully has now been removed, I thought it was worth a quick mention. In this video, the YouTuber stated it could be used as a tutorial on how to change the coolant on a Gen 1 Hayabusa, and what he recommended everyone does was to warm the engine and get the coolant up to temperature, and then drain it. Now for most people who work on vehicles, this is a very obvious no-no, and should never be done. But for those who maybe are just starting out working on bikes, cars, trucks, speedboats, cheesecake, whatever, please never remove the radiator cap when the coolant is hot. When the coolant heats, it expands, it builds up pressure in your cooling system, and when you open up that radiator cap, it'll want to squirt hot juice all over your face, and not in a fun way. Though if I can get hold of the original video, I may do a full video on this in the future. Anyway, mini rant over, onto the subject of the video. Why I think pretty much every rider would benefit from owning a cheap, crap 125 or equivalent. Now this idea is based on a lot of generalisation and splitting riders into 2 or 3 main categories. And also most of this is premised on being in the UK, because that's where I am, though most of the principles will still apply in other countries to a greater or lesser extent, depending on national or state laws and regulations. Firstly, you've got the younger, newer rider just starting out, potentially on a 125 on their CBT, or a similar bike, learning the ways of the two-wheel death machine. Now, for a new rider, 125s are great. They'll let you exercise that wide open throttle that you've been yearning to use, but without the risks of smashing into a tree when you're doing 120, and the tree decides to jump out onto the road when you come near it. Also, the fuel economy is amazing, insurance is cheap, and in the UK it's still around about £20 a year to tax it. And this is one of the things that attracted me to bikes in the first place. Another benefit for the new younger rider is if you pick up a second-hand 125 for say £600-700, thrash it for a year and then move on to a quote-unquote big bike, then you can sell your 125 for about what you paid for it, unless you super trashed it or wrapped it around the previously mentioned tree. The third main benefit for a new young rider is that they are so easy to work on. The engines are small, simple, and they tend to be quite uncomplicated in terms of engine design. I know a lot of newer riders, the younger ones in particular, probably aren't exactly flush for cash, and these days every penny counts. Now, for a bike service on my Iska, which may or may not get a proper review soon, and is the bike I'm riding in the video, the garage charged me about £90 for its first service, which these days isn't exactly expensive by no means. But the parts to service the bike cost around £30, so in one service, by doing it myself, I would save £60. Now, servicing the bike twice a year, there's £120 to stick in your pocket towards your next bike, or some Hello Kitty stickers for it, whatever you're into. Now, I know not everyone is massively excited to get up in the morning and go stick their hands in a bucket of copper grease or brake fluid, but servicing a 125 is so simple, I'm pretty sure my mum could do it, even in her sleep. The next sort of rider who would benefit from a 125 or similar is the experienced rider, maybe had 3, 4, 75,000 motorbikes in the past, and maybe has 3 or 4 at the same time, and is looking to get into the maintenance side a little bit. More for the holistic experience, the satisfying fullness of I maintain my own motorcycle, or want to save a few quid because servicing a 4-cylinder sports bike will be so expensive it might actually be worth buying a second cheap bike to use as a learning platform rather than mess up the timing on their 1 litre sports bike. The benefits from learning on a little 125 like the Iska or Chuck Suzuki is the simplicity of the engines. Single cylinder means no carbs to balance, only one piston to worry about, and 125s tend to only have 2 or 4 valves. And pretty much every job you need to do can be accomplished with the right size spanners, a screwdriver and a hammer, or just use your adjustable spanner if your hammer's missing. Also, if the engine needs to come out, the engine on a 125 is light enough that you can actually do it by hand in a pinch, though it is still easier with some hydraulic assistance. Now, worst case scenario, you buy a 125 to learn spannering on, but you absolutely hate it. The idea sounded cool, but you just don't like it. That's fine. Sell it. Old 125s don't really lose much value, so you've probably not lost more than the fuel to go pick up the bike and the price of the tools if you're just starting out. But hey, at least you gave it a go. The last category of rider is the rider normally middle-aged by this point. Got a fair amount of cash behind them because the kids have finally grown up now and stopped eating them out of house and home. And now they have a really nice bike. Like a 9-10 grand motorcycle. Normally have these bikes on PCP or finance and swap every 3 to 4 years because there's something else new and shiny with silly coloured wheels and a gimmicky touchscreen dash. Whatever tickles your pickle. But now you found a bike that you want to keep past its warranty period, so suddenly you're free. You don't need to have the bike serviced by the dealer anymore. No more £40 per hour labour charges, but one small hang-up. You've been paying for services your whole life. Is it the round bit or the pointy bit of the screwdriver you use? What does torque spec truly mean? The answer to these questions? Buy a cheap, nasty 125 and start by servicing it. Let's face it, if you have 10 grand to spend on the latest bike tech, surely you've got a couple of £100 that you can invest into your own personal development. And if you're keeping the bike you've just spent 10k on, the 125 will pay for itself in about 3 services, which could be as soon as a year past the warranty period, depending how much riding you do in a year. Plus, as with the previous rider, if you don't like it, sell it. Surely it's better to give it a go and enhance your own capabilities as a rider, and miss out on a couple of Sunday afternoons, than it is to spend much more money than you need to on bike servicing, and always wondering what the 4 strokes of the combustion cycle are. Suck, squeeze, bang, blow, by the way. So, in summary, I know this is quite a generalisation, and I fully acknowledge that spannering isn't for everyone, and some people have no desire or intention of ever getting into it, and that's fine. This video really isn't about that person. It's more for the person who's ever sat idly wondering how the throttle works, or why people on the internet argue about carbs versus EFI, or what the hell volumetric efficiency means, or even people just wanting to save money on servicing. Whether the motivation is intellectual, moral, or financial, as long as there is some motivation to try it, then why the hell not? And in all honesty, starting out spannering is 90% just having the confidence to pick up a spanner and go, let's service my bike. The knowledge, expertise, and all the little tricks of the trade, they come with time and experience, though there are shortcuts to getting good, and YouTube's a good one. No, I'm not talking about editing out your mistakes and trying to hide the fact you used an adjustable as a hammer, or anything like that, but YouTube has a whole ton of videos showing you how to do stuff, and a lot of it can be very bike specific. So if you don't know where to start, search your bike's model, year, and the word servicing guide on YouTube, or just go out, get a Haynes manual or equivalent. Though a word of caution with the videos on YouTube, if something does seem a little bit sketchy or too good to be true, always double check with the manufacturer's service manuals, because they will give you the way the manufacturer tells you to do something, and it will always be in the safest and most practical way that they can think of, rather than the kind of person on YouTube who will tell you to change your coolant when it's hot. There's nothing wrong with trying it out and giving something a bash, unless that something's a light bulb and you're using a hammer. Then you're just an idiot. Any road, I hope that made sense. And if you like this kind of video, there will be more on the channel. We do have a whiteboard on the way, so we can get into a bit of the more technical aspects of biking. Anyway, cheers for watching, and we'll see you next time.